Hey all, Pixel here from Improbable Garage. Working on a garage project. So the last video you've seen was the prepping the van for the winter, changing out the tires and whatnot. That video was filmed Christmas Eve. The prior video to that, the one where I was working on the van, was filmed Thanksgiving weekend. I didn't do any work in the garage that entire month because it was just too goddamn cold. I also have seasonal affective disorder, so getting out here once it gets dark all the time is also hard, but the fact that I have to go out here in the dark and the cold doesn't make it any easier. And I've been trying to figure out solutions for heating the garage. This garage is 23 by 25. I insulated the walls a couple of years ago, but the entire ceiling is currently uninsulated, and there's no quick and easy solution for that. If you've been watching the channel long enough, I have a little electric space heater. It's somewhere on the shelf behind me over there, which is okay-ish. If I'm working in a very limited area, I can point it at me and it takes the chill off. But it's still uncomfortably cold in here, and especially if I'm working on a project where I'm moving around a lot, it's really cold in here. And I've been trying to find a solution for that. Looked at other electric heaters. None of them I'm really happy with. The 220 ones, I feel like I'm going to use a ton of power. The 110 ones, I don't know that they're going to put out enough more than that to be useful. Also, just finding a place for a heater in this crowded space is really hard. Looked at propane heaters, and from everything I've read, the problem with propane heat is it adds a lot of moisture to the air, and because I have a car that's completely exposed bare metal everywhere, that's a bad move. Kerosene heaters and wood furnaces, not furnaces, wood stoves, both add soot to the room. So that's, again, if I'm going to try painting and stuff, I don't want soot just coating everything. So been kind of at a loss. Was looking at the solar heaters, the ones where it's a thing on the outside of the building that the sun beats on, heats the air up in it, and cycles that air into the space and heats that. Been looking at those, couldn't figure out a solution for it because my garage wall, the garage door wall, is my south-facing wall. So there's not really a lot of wall space there. There's like a 1.5 foot gap on one side, a door, 2 foot gap, door, 1.5 foot gap. So none of those are good for building a good size one. Plus I was gonna have to punch holes in the walls. And I couldn't hang it over one side or the other because there's a gate on one side and a walkway on the other. So it can't be wider than the building. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. And then I had a brilliant idea the other day because I've thought about putting one in front of one of the doors, but how do I get the air out and the heat in without punching 2 holes in my door that are then there in the summer? Well, I've come up with a solution. This door doesn't need to be opened regularly during the winter. In fact, it rarely needs to be opened because the Oldsmobile's not going anywhere anytime soon. And that means I have this 8 foot by 7 foot space. So what I've decided I think I'm going to do is build a set of wood double doors in this space that are on pin hinges. And for now, I'm only going to do it on one side. If it works well, I'm going to do it on the other side. But I'm going to build a solar heater into that door. So what I'm going to end up with is some doors that are probably going to be somewhere between 6 and 4 inches. I haven't decided yet. Mounted here, or possibly mounted here. Haven't decided yet. But that even if they're mounted, so let's say they're mounted here, they're going to take up this space. That means that I'll have the door here, that'll be my solar heater, and ironically I'll actually gain space because if you look at where the door track is, I'll gain a couple of inches of space, which will make it slightly easier to walk around behind the Oldsmobile. The idea is 2 doors, each of which are 4 by 7, and I'm going to build a 6 foot solar heater into, for now, the left one, and we'll get into the design of that in a little bit, but that is going to be enough to do a proof of concept. And if it's producing a decent amount of heat, what I'll do is just duplicate it onto the other door, at which point I will have a 8 foot by 6 foot solar heater facing south. All right, so let's talk design. In its most basic level, what a solar heater is a box with a clear side and a vent leading out of the top and a vent leading out of the bottom. And what happens is the sun beats through the clear side, heats up the inside of the box. That causes the air to heat up and causes convection, so the air rises, goes out of the top vent, which draws cooler air in the bottom vent and continues its cycle. I've been doing a bunch of reading on these. I wanted to build one at my old shop, never got around to it. Here, never got around to it. Finally decided, you know what, let's just do it. Because the only way I'll know if it's worth having is to have it. So my plan is to buy 2 pieces of plywood to be the 2 doors. I'm going to get some other wood to reinforce it a bit. Then I'm going to build a box out from that that's, like I said, 4 or 6 inches deep. It's supposed to depend on what lumber is available. And the back of that box is going to be lined in a thin layer of insulation, just because apparently the largest source of heat loss in one of these, which reduces their efficiency, is through the back panel, because the sun's going straight through and hitting that. At the top and the bottom, I'm just going to cut large slits. Some people use fans. I will probably augment it with a fan later, but I want to figure out a way for the fans to only come on if there's a temperature differential, like if it's hotter inside the heater than in the garage, so that I'm not pointlessly cycling warmer air through to the outside and back in, because effectively that box is going to be outside the garage. But for now, I'm just going to cut large slits. That'll be enough to get air circulation. I'm going to build it has 2 separate panels, just because of how I'm covering the outside. The front panel, part of the reason I've been delaying building this is because most people that I had been reading about had been building for a long while. The thing was, you just use like an old storm door window or something, or a sliding glass door or something as your front if you wanted to build this cheaply. And finding one that's a useful and right size was always a problem. So that's always kind of where it's stalled. And more recent articles I'm finding, people are using the polycarbonate roofing sheets, the like wavy ones. You'll see them when I go pick one up, as the front panel. Apparently you get a very minor amount of efficiency loss, polycarbonate versus glass, but the cost savings is so much. Like, either I have to build it to whatever piece of glass I find cheaper for free, or I have to have custom pieces of glass cut. Much more expensive. I can get enough polycarbonate sheet to do the entire box for like $27, I think. So definitely the better and easier choice. Inside, the inside of the box is always painted black, maximum heat absorption. There's a bunch of different schools of thought of what you do in there. Some people just build pieces of wood to make it like a zigzag path, so the air takes longer to go through, has more chance to heat up. Another popular one to use is soda cans. You save a bunch of soda cans, you clean them out, you drill a hole in the bottom and the top, you glue them into stacks, glue those in with a manifold at the top and bottom to make sure the air only goes through the cans, and then you paint all the cans black. And the aluminums are very efficient. Heat transfer, some people do a similar thing using downspout, aluminum downspout. Same basic idea, just downspout. You lose a little efficiency because it doesn't have the inherent baffling of all those intersections of the cans, but you save a ton of labor versus prepping, cleaning, drilling all of those cans. I'm not doing that method because, again, for the research I did, one of the other methods that people do that apparently works very efficiently, like shockingly so, to the point where one of the things I read, this is a couple of years ago, the person who did it was genuinely surprised at how much more efficient it was, is just a window screen. It doesn't really matter if it's the aluminum or the fiberglass. Apparently you just need the screen, paint it black, and you secure it like, sorry, there's a car going disturbingly slow on the highway. You secure it like if you're looking at the box end on. You secure it to the back wall near the bottom, just above the vent, and to the front wall at the top by the upper vent, so that it's a slow diagonal across the whole thing. So all of the air as it rises has to pass through that screen. And what that screen does is both slow the air down a little bit, but also it absorbs heat and then more efficiently transfers it to the air, because the sun is heating it, the air is convection cooling it, and you get hotter air than you would if it was just an empty box. So that's the method I'm using. the convenient plus side to this is it'll also give me a little bit of window screen to fix the one busted window here in the van. I don't know whether I'm going to use aluminum or fiberglass. Apparently the efficiency differences are very minor, so it's going to be mostly price and convenience. So that's the basic design. Wood box, polycarbonate on the outside, insulation on the backside, window screen as a baffle inside of it. And I'm going to do it as two separate ones, again, for the build method, because that polycarbonate comes in 26-inch by 6-foot or 12-foot sheets. So I can build a 6-foot high box out of just one of those, and that little bit of that extra 2 inches means that I can put a strip of wood up the center and secure it at the sides and at the center, and there's a little they specifically sell a little plastic thing to like take up the wobbly shape at the top and the bottom, and it's going to get a foam gasket to secure it so that if I need to, I can take the polycarbonate back off later without damaging it the way it would if I used like silicone or something. So that's where we are. That's the basic plan. I'm pulling into the Lowe's right now. I've got the seats out of the van so I can haul plywood, and we are going to do some shopping.
Kitchen van, man.
Thank you. Hey all, so it's a few days later and we're going to actually do the building because it's actually warm enough and I'm out during the day when I can see. So we need to open this door. We're going to be building in this area, so the wagon I had to put on the battery charger because it was stone dead. We're going to get it and all the other cars out of the way and get set up and get started building. So, just as a statement on the quality of lumber that's available today, this was all the high-grade lumber. And when we're trying to assemble it, this board and this board were from the same lot. They were both picked up from the same thing. Look how far off. How do you even get the height wrong on a board that you're ripping thousands of? And then over here, this board and the far one were cut from a piece of 12-foot lumber. So logical, measured at 6 foot, lopped it down the middle. And then everything was fitting really weird. There was a weird gap right here we couldn't figure out. So we remeasured this board. That line is where 6 foot is. So this wasn't a 12-foot board. It was a 12-foot and 7/8 board. Like, I don't even understand how you can get these measurements wrong, because your machine should be set up to just slice it the same length over and over again. So what we're gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to pull these 2 screws out, very carefully cut this most of the way with the circular saw, and then come in with a hand saw for the rest, knock this piece off so I can pull this whole thing in. It also explains why my corners were all a little wonky, because the box wasn't actually the same length. So yeah, quality lumber being sold these days. All of the pre-installation assembly is now done. As you saw when I interrupted last time, we've got the box built We've got the cross piece in. It's now all secured to the piece of plywood. This has been cut down to the... It turns out this opening is 83 inches at that end and like 84 and a half or something at this end, which doesn't surprise me. So I cut it for the short end because I can use rubber gasketing to make up the difference. I ended up... The original plan was to put the box at the very top, but then I realized there was no reason it needed to be there, so I moved it down 2 inches so that I can build a sort of rain gutter easily off of this with just some aluminum flashing, and then put the hinges on. So I put the hinges on wrong. I realized that right after I started. So what you saw there was a bunch of discussion about which way the hinges should go and whether it's okay and whatnot. And we test fitted it with how it was. I decided I hated it, but I did like mounting the hinges to the face here better than to here, just because of what's behind this. There's a piece of wood, there's possibly a space, but then there's multiple 2x4s here. But if you come at it from this side, there's a piece of wood, possibly a space, because there's a gap, but I don't know how high up and down it runs. And then there's 2x4s, so there's potentially an area where there's effectively nothing but whatever thin wood is behind this. So this way is going to give me more strength, as well as being able to use all 5 screw holes. So that ended up with this design. The face is going to be here for the door. Yes, this hinge is going in backwards relative to these countersinks, but I don't care. I did have to cut this off just because relative depths and stuff, but I'm pretty confident. This I'm fine with 3 screws, especially because 2 of them are into the thick wood, and 5 here will be more than enough. So I think that's gonna be fine. We're gonna go get lunch, and then we're gonna install this. All right, and major assembly is done. I just kept working on it because I wanted to get done rather than stop and explain each step. So yeah, to move the hinges, I think that was the last thing. I don't remember if I mentioned, but I realized I needed to cut the vents for the top and bottom, and that's easier to do down, so I did that while it was down. Got this one installed. I need to get some more washers, so it doesn't have the right number of screws in it yet. I'm going to come back and deal with that, but it's got enough to hold it safely in place. And then on this one, it's just the back panel in this side so that it lines up with the other one. I did it this way, so if later I want to build this one out into another solar heater, I don't have to redo it. I just have to basically take out these little braces that I put in and build out the rest of the box. I have to take you inside because it's latched right now to show you how it latches. So I have down at the bottom, I've just got a simple hasp. I'm just going to put a pin in this to hold it, but that's what holds the bottom together. And then up here, let's not get the sunshine right through the hole. 2 of these, unlock one door, unlock the other door, and then they open right up. They open to 90 degrees. It would be nice if they opened a little further, but that's kind of what I was stuck with mainly because of the door depth. but it's more than enough to get the holes in and out, so I still have this as a fully functional garage door. If I want or need to, the old garage door will still close. So if I either want more insulation once I've got the solar heater stopped doing its job for the day or whatever, I can still close the other this door and it'll close just fine. I may have to take the, if it still has an outside latch, I'll have to take that off. Not latch, pull handle, but I don't think it does. We'll find that out later. But yeah, this is all the main structure. This is now at a point where I can close this all up and it's nice and secure. Now that it's an absolute disaster out here, I'm pretty much done on the inside. So put the foam in, painted everything inside flat black using some really cheap flat black paints, thinking it doesn't matter, I'll just use that. It was a royal pain, and how fast I could touch up with Rust-Oleum flat black told me that I should have bought that in the first place. The rolls of window screen were shorter than I anticipated. I think I misunderstood something or misread the package or something, but it doesn't go, I wanted it to go all the way down to the bottom, but it doesn't. But it's okay for now. This will at least get me started. I didn't want to wait just long enough to buy another roll, because I can take the polycarbonate off later and replace it. If I need to cut out the top, cut out the bottom. Should have done that before I put the window screen in, because there's a bunch of foam trapped back here. I'm hoping that the convection will just lift all those off eventually. The window screen was charcoal, which I thought was going to be much darker, but it turned out to be very gray, so I shot it with paint as well. Taped the edges. The down here was the bigger one I cared more about, but taped all the edges so that the air coming in wouldn't end up behind the foam. Put these pieces of flashing in as a deflector to get the air moving upwards. They're nailed in, and then I taped that back edge, taped this to keep them together, and taped them to the edge just so that they'll stay in place. Up at the top up here, the bottom edge is taped mostly for neatness, more than it, I keep putting my finger in the wet paint, more for neatness than anything else. But then I don't know how else it's going to show up. There's a piece of tape here to help the air move in, because this is a little bit lower than that. And there's another piece of tape here to help the air move this way. I don't know how effective this one's going to be, but I had the tape, I was there, I did it. So the only thing left at this point is to put the polycarbonate on and put the this stuff, I can't remember the name of, on, but the edges are black because I realized at the last minute that I didn't like the raw wood there, so I shot it with the black. Of course, now I'm putting brown foam tape there and white foam at the top, so I shouldn't have bothered. But yeah, so all this stuff is done. I think I'm gonna clean up, maybe go get dinner, and then screw the polycarbonate sheets on. All right, and it's done. Put the tape on the edges, use the foam spacer stuff, the top and the bottom. Turns out if you put a screw in every place, it crushes the foam down enough that it makes a nice seal. So yeah, screws all there, screws up the center and then on the sides. Trimmed this edge. I'm going to come back probably and trim it some more when I can see a little better, because it's got some sharp bits. Was trying to figure out what I was going to do for a drip cap on the top. Was thinking, oh, I need to go buy a roll of aluminum flashing, and then I remembered a friend of mine gave me this roll of copper flashing. It's actually really thin copper with an adhesive. It's more for like sealing the valley or two bits of a roof joint or something, but it's good enough for what I need, because it's just, you know, that much roof. It should hold just fine. Snow load may crush it, but even then it's unlikely it's going to get enough snow on it, so that'll work. Also, I fucking love copper. I'm a sucker for anything copper, so the fact that it can be a copper drip cap, awesome. It's nailed at the top and then screwed at the front, just because there's no room for the screws at the top. I wouldn't have minded nailing the front, but there's no place to do it. But yeah, this is theoretically done. The only thing that's left is paint on the bare wood, but that's not going to happen tonight. So, unfortunately, of course, it's now dark, so I have no idea if this is going to work. All right, it's a couple days later, and I kept hoping for a nice sunny day so I could actually test this thing properly and see it in the daylight at least. But I haven't been lucky. Today is kind of overcast and warmish, but not feeling any warmth from the sun. You know, it's overcast enough that you don't feel the sun's rays, you don't see the sun. So there hasn't been a day to really see if this is working or not, because the weather just hasn't been cooperative. So I'm going to keep you all updated on it and go forward from there. But that's it for now. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.